I get asked every week, why do you do what you do? Or how have you done it for so long? Or whatever, right? I've been in this business for 30 years. And I'm starting to get fired up right now talking about it because it ticks me off that we can't find homes for kids or a bed for kids. What kid? We're the United States of America and kids are hungry. Makes no sense to me. And that ticks me off.
All right, it's my pleasure today to be talking to the CEO and president of Peoria, Illinois' largest nonprofit, the Children's Home of Illinois, or Children's Home Association of Illinois, and the author of this fantastic book, The Nonprofit Game Plan, which I read in just 2 days, which is a quick read for me because it's just that good. And his name is Matt George. So, Matt, thank you very much for coming on today.
Well, I appreciate you having me on. You have a great show.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
That means a lot. So, Matt, you once played doubles tennis for more than 5 days straight and longer than any one single person has ever played doubles tennis on the planet. I was hoping you could tell us a little more about that story just so everyone gets a taste of the kind of maniac that you are.
Yeah, maniac's right. Well, it started when I was 16 years old. I had a friend of mine that passed away from cancer, and one day he was sitting next to me, and the next day he wasn't. And at age 16, it hits you hard, and you don't know what to think. And so I decided I was a tennis player, and I decided to raise some money for his family. So I did a tennis marathon, and at the time, the world record for doubles tennis was 121 hours and of straight tennis. So you get a 5-minute break every hour. You could accumulate that time so you could play for 10 hours, let's say, and then have a 50-minute break if you needed or whatever. So there was some strategy to it, and I played for about 55 straight hours. I was well short of the goal, but we raised $3,000, and giving that $3,000 to his family to pay and help defray the costs of the funeral is really what I look back and triggered me to get into the business that I'm in today. And so fast forward about 4 years after that, at age 20, I heard a story about a young man and a young lady, both 12 and 14, who were really struggling, and they were dying of leukemia. And I said, you know what? I'm strong. I'm an athlete. I'm going to go get this record. And so I met with tennis psychologists. I met with coaches. I trained. I ate well, and I tried to train my mind mentally to be able to stay up that long. And a lot of positive thoughts, and went after the world record, and ended up breaking the world record, 125 hours, raised a whole heck of a lot of money at a young age. 36,000, I think, was the total at that time, and felt very good about it. And little did I know that was also the stepping stone to what I am still doing today. It's taking care of communities and taking care of people.
That's absolutely incredible. First of all, to do that at 16, I can tell you what I was doing at 16. It sure as heck was not trying to break a world record and trying to give thousands of dollars to a family who lost one of their children. But I want you to say also, what was the big twist at the end of that story when you did break the world record?
The people in charge of the event didn't record the record correctly, and Guinness Book shot down the record. And so I was never officially, I was the official world record holder, but not in the eyes of Guinness.
Right.
So I was in Tennis Magazine and some other things, and had press all over the country and some parts of the world. I got some cool calls from people, Hulk Hogan and people like that would call me and congratulate you, but at the end of the day, it wasn't in the Guinness Book. But that didn't matter to me. I mean, it was about raising the funds, and both of those kids ended up being inspirations to me to break that record, and they're both living today.
Yeah, and so that's incredible, but it was that your tennis partner, because you're playing doubles, they switched out. You stayed in the whole time, but they switched in and out, and that kind of broke the rules, right?
That broke the rules. Every hour, someone else came in, and that's how we raised money. So they paid to play with me and against me. So there were 3 new tennis players playing against me over a 125 hour period.
Got it.
It's crazy.
Yeah. So before we move on, could you just tell us a little more about what the Children's Home Association of Illinois actually does for the listeners that don't know a darn thing about it?
Yeah, so our mission is to help kids and families who need it most, and it's pretty simple. We've been around 155 years, which I think is one of the stats that I talk about all the time because it's the legacy of an agency. It's crazy that to think that an agency was formed in 1866. And so we provide services to at-risk youth and caregivers. And if you look at all of the kids in need and the families in need in our communities, just in the state of Illinois. Now this goes for all over the world and across the United States, but just in the state of Illinois, there's 23,500 kids that are in the system, so to speak. And so that's a lot of kids, and that's a lot of kids that need places to sleep. They need nourished correctly. They need to be educated or have the opportunity. And a lot of them don't have this opportunity. And so there's so many different dynamics that flow with each one of these kids. So so on a monthly basis, we have 1,700 kids flow through our agency. Now think about that. 1,700 kids a month.
A month.
Right.
Just kids?
Kids and families. But
Okay.
it's mainly kids.
1,700. That's incredible.
It's incredible.
Month?
A month.
In Peoria?
In Peoria.
Okay.
And so just to kind of put things in perspective, there's agencies like ours all over the state. Some are small, some are big. There's a lot of big agencies in the Chicago area, but these kids are in the system because of whatever. It could be crisis, it could be trauma at an early age, it could be abuse, it could be death of parents and no other family. There's a million different ways they could be part of the system. And those kids are called youth in care. And we take care of the kids of our state and of our city. So it's not just kids that flow from the Peoria area. It's all over. So it's Macomb, Danville, Galesburg, Southern Illinois, Chicago. And a kid's a kid. And so when you look at taking care of these 1,700 kids, that's 1,700 different situations. No kid is the same. And so it's hard to, it's a hard business because you try to be as diverse as you can in program offerings, but a kid may need 10 different subsets of help, or may need 2. May have a sister in the system, as an example, that's in Champaign, and he's in Peoria, so the family's apart. There's just so many dynamics, and you know what makes this time of year good and bad is holiday times bring back memories to all. And this is a special time for everybody, and for kids. If you remember when you were little, what did you look forward to? Family, food, gifts, correct? And what happens if you don't have any of the 3?
Oh, geez, it just sharply contrasts, what you did have, and it makes the sad times even sadder. It contributes to, this is the highest, this time, Christmas time is the highest rate of suicide on average, right?
Yeah, holiday times are tough for people, and it brings back a lot of memories, good or bad. And, at Children's Home, I like to think a lot of times that we give a lot of children and a lot of families the opportunity to dream. And these kids need that vision in their heads. They need to know that people want to give you gifts, that people want to help. There's so much negativity in this world as it is. It's our job at Children's Home to show that there's fun too.
What does it mean to be in the system, and how does one get into the system exactly?
Well, the system is DCFS as an example, Department of Children and Family Services. That's where the 23,500 kids are in the system. So let's say a child is abused. DCFS goes in, pulls that child. Next thing you know, they're in the system. So that parent may be a single parent. That parent goes to jail for abuse. Now the state, in essence, is the parent of that child. They have the rights to that child because the parent is nowhere to be seen. That's one example. So a lot of times residential facilities like we have at Children's Home, we have Youth Farm, it's called, where we have kids there that need a place to stay. They need a place to learn. They need a place to feel like family. They need a place to be loved. They need that friendship. They need the counseling. You name it. That's what a residential facility does. Then there's also kids that are in the foster care system. And the foster care system has thousands of kids just floating, waiting for families. And what's sad about that part of it is a lot of people want to be foster parents, not enough, but they want to babies.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right? But what does that mean for the 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15-year-olds who are sitting there floating? And that's what happens. And that's what's hard about our business. So we're constantly recruiting and trying to recruit foster parents. We're constantly trying to show a path to these kids that there's a better world out there, to give these kids an opportunity, to give these families an opportunity, the ones who need it most. And that's one of the things that we do at Children's Home.
Just a few weeks ago, actually, I had a kid on who was exactly like you said. DCFS came to his house. His mom, he was only raised by his mom, and she was a heroin addict. Right. And she had overdosed plenty of times, and I think she went to jail, and DCFS came and picked him and his sister up. And he said it was a pretty traumatic thing. It was scary at the time. And then, boom, he was in the system, and he spoke about exactly what you were saying. Young kids, babies especially, they're picked up like that. The older you get, though, the less likely it is that you will be adopted. And that's really all you want, just to be adopted and loved. And he said one of the most frustrating things, I don't know if this is exactly common, but he said it was really frustrating for kids in his age group. He was at the baby fold here in town. To see parents adopting from other countries. It seems like they really like to do that. He's like, yeah. We're right here. There's a ton of us that are 13, 14, 15, 16 even. And he said it was just so frustrating for them.
It goes back to the babies. Mm-hmm. You go to another country, you're not going to another country for a 15-year-old.
Right.
Period. And that's what's hard about the business that we're in. A 15-year-old and a 16-year-old knows. They're street savvy. They know the odds of them getting into a home are very slim. So if you think about it, what does that mean? And this is where I get compassionate, because what does that mean if you're 14 on up to age 18 in that gap, which is, in my opinion, one of the most important gaps of someone's life? This is where you make decisions that are life-changing. This is where our heroes that work at Children's Home come in and clear paths for some of these kids to be able to show that there's light at the end of the tunnel. But what if there is no light? What happens to these kids? And that does, down the road, turn into homelessness, drug addiction, all of the other ills of society. That's what happens. And that is what, when I think about I get asked every week, why do you do what you do? Or how have you done it for so long? Or whatever, right? I've been in this business for 30 years. And I'm starting to get fired up right now talking about it because it ticks me off that we can't find homes for kids or a bed for kids. What kid? We're the United States of America and kids are hungry. Makes no sense to me. And that ticks me off.
Well, what's your guess as to why that is? Like, what is the societal problem that is leading to kids not being adopted at the rates you'd like to see?
Well, that's a very
super
complicated question. The short of it is we have a lot of other issues that compound all of these, sometimes small issues, sometimes big, and it kind of blows up. So I've seen kids in a pretty stable environment. It turns just like that, where someone's in the family, dad gets arrested. Mom has 5 kids, can't do anything. Dad goes to jail for 3 years. Next thing you know, homelessness. Next thing you know, it just compounds. I mean, it's just one thing after another. And I mean, as I'm speaking right now to you, I have names and faces in my head of these people. And that's where it gets tough. But that's also the drive for what we do. Because the team, I'm telling you right now, we have 400 plus employees. Those 400 plus employees are heroes. And when you look at, there's a lot of great people that do great things, whether it's frontline workers at hospitals, emergency rooms, police, fire, military, you name it. What never gets the credit is the business I'm in. And I'm not saying the credit that I need a pat on the back or these frontline workers work harder and do more and have a better impact, a bigger impact than most people will ever know. And it's phenomenal. And that's what we have to focus on, is getting the people into this business to help more people. That's one of our goals.
Absolutely. It is insanely important work, and it takes a special kind of person, a selfless person, a person with work ethic, a person who's just plain tough as well, to enter into this industry and to do what your employees and you do. And I plan on talking about that in just a second. Gomez Lawn Care provides lawn and landscape services that will make any property look amazing. The Central Illinois lawn is a playground for the family, a personal retreat, and an oasis for guests and customers, and Gomez Lawn Care knows how to make yours stand out above the rest. Residential or commercial, Gomez Lawn Care offers high-quality lawn services like rolling, seeding, weed maintenance, and weekly and bi-weekly mowing, while also offering landscaping services such as spring, fall, and after-storm cleanups, landscaping and mulch installations, and more to keep your property looking great all season long. Your time is valuable, so let Gomez Lawn Care keep your grass green and your property clean. Go to GomezLC.com and send them a message at the bottom of the page to get a free estimate today. Gomez Lawn Care, high quality satisfaction. But to keep with the theme of talking about the kids first, I would like to ask, what are some examples of the situations, of the environments that the kids that you work with have come from in the past?
I mean, we've seen kids that have never had an address. I had a kid once at age 14, and one of my side little things that I do as a hobby is I cook. And I cooked barbecue. Now, pulled pork barbecue, this sounds really silly, but this was like an aha moment for me. This was a while back, where this kid was 14 years old, and I said, I'm going to make you my favorite meal when I was your age that my mom made me. So I made pulled pork for all of these kids. He came up to me about 2 months later. He said, are you going to cook for me again? And I said, definitely. I'll cook for you anytime, bud. And he said, I've never had barbecue. I'd always heard about it, but I never had it. And as silly as that sounds, it's really eye-opening to know that kids have never had barbecue. kids sometimes are couch surfing and hopping from house to house. Sometimes a kid may not have an address. Sometimes we have kids that have been abused since they were infants and now they're 12 years old and they've been abused every year of their life. It's pitiful. It's pitiful. And so when you say, what does a kid look like in the system? It's 1,700 different versions of what I just talked about. And there's kids who are 15 years old and have never held a book. There's kids who are on the street right now, curled up in a ball. Average age of a kid in Peoria County, or average age of a homeless person in Peoria County is 9.
No way.
9. Now you say, how is that possible? I can give you a quick story. We got a call a few years back. Young mother, age 16, crying. She's in crisis. She's pregnant. She has 2 twins, and they're, let's say, 15, 16 months old. And she had a 2-year-old. Average age, 8. So there is a lot of that throughout the United States. And I paint that dim picture because a lot of times what people don't want to do is know what's right underneath their nose. And it's like this in every community. So here in Bloomington Normal, it's here. It's in Peoria. It's in Chicago. It's in Indianapolis. And it's our job. I truly believe it is our job as humans to take care of our communities and to take care of these kids and families.
Absolutely. And like you just said there, I've heard it's Psychology 101. So often, to get the thing that you most want, the thing you most desire, even in society, which is less homeless kids, to get what you most want, you have to face what you are least willing to face, which is often right in front of you.
It's right in front of you.
And also, I love what you said. You're emphasizing the importance of viewing each and every one of these kids as unique individuals with a unique set of circumstances, living a unique life. A lot of the time, it just infuriates me in politics. You see it on both sides. They say, we're going to help the blank, this gigantic group of people with one very broad legislation that they hope to pass, and they speak to the masses.
Yeah.
But you are in the trenches with the individuals. All your employees are in the trenches with these individuals, and I think it's just, you can't stress it enough how important it is to look at each one of these children and young adults as unique individuals with infinite potential and who are infinitely valuable. And I just really appreciate that you say that.
Well, I know I'm blunt sometimes, but I truly believe that every child has an opportunity to succeed. They just didn't grow up like some of us. Mm-hmm. That's not fair. So to give these kids an opportunity, whatever that opportunity looks like, it's deserved, in my opinion. It's deserved. That's what we do. That's what we do at Children's Home.
This is a bit of a tone switch, but along the lines of the same topic. Can you think of, when I say success story, does any one kid come to mind?
Well, success, a lot of times, as I've gotten older, that's changed what success means. So 10, 15 years ago, I had a story of a young kid who actually graduated from our program. He became an adult. He moved down to Florida and became a multimillionaire. Had his own landscaping business, had 15 trucks, and I used to think that was success. Here's what changed. About 4 years ago, the mother of 4 young kids, oldest kid was 10, and the mother died. The father was in prison. The grandma decides she's going to, and she was 80 years old. She decided the only way that she could give these kids, her grandkids, an opportunity was with Children's Home help, our team's help, is to take on all 4 kids under the age of 10. Now, they all dressed up, and the boys dressed up in tuxedos. the little girls dressed up in dresses, and the grandma adopted them, and we had a party. And the party was the family unit is back together. That to me now is success. Success, in a way, is that kid becoming a productive tax-paying citizen down in Florida, becoming a millionaire. But the true success was seeing this 10-year-old boy's face who had to act like a dad because there was none to his younger brothers and sisters. And they dressed up as if it was graduation, and they sat there eating cake and celebrating that they were going home together. The 4 kids were not being broken up, which happens. And they're going back to stay with grandma. Now, at my age now, that's success. That's cool.
That is cool, man. And I am a huge promoter of the importance of family. Right. And really, even if you take all the emotion out of it, a good way to determine, the fall of a society is coming, at least in history, is to look at, how often families are broken up.
Right.
You destroy the family, a lot of times the society gets broken down with it. And now I want to ask, in the nonprofit world, a lot of the time, your employees, the workload is rigorous. It's extremely difficult. You take the issues of the children that you work with home with you. You don't get to exactly escape from those things psychologically.
Right.
And also, usually the jobs will pay less than for-profit industries or companies in the same industry, or just companies in general.
Right.
How have you managed in Peoria to still be one of the largest employers? I think last I checked, you were like the 12th largest employer.
That's right.
Which is kind of funny because you're a nonprofit and you're still in like the top 20 of all companies.
Right.
So how have you managed to do that despite all these things?
Well, it sounds like there's 100% success behind us. It's not true. We have our struggles. And the struggles you're seeing in both for-profit and nonprofit right now. Everybody has a hiring issue. But it's not just a hiring issue, it's a retaining issue. And so what we did as a team is, and our board backed it, is we did a compensation study. And we were comparing it to other nonprofits. We were comparing it to, like, we have 2 schools. So we have an Academy for Autism and what we call Kiefer School, which has about 100 kids. And so we have a lot of special ed teachers. We have a lot of TAs, one-on-ones. How do you compete with the school districts? And so we have really focused this past 7 years on fundraising and making sure we're good stewards with our dollars and running a business. Because it's not just a program, it's a business, and it's big business. We're a $32 million annual budget. And when you look at that, these kids need help. So you have to sit here and give these kids an opportunity. How do you do it? It's other people. So we need people to join us at Children's Home. And that's one of my appeals today to your audience. If you want something life-changing, come to Children's Home. I can guarantee it. If you give it an opportunity, it'll change your life. And so we decided to implement just recently this change in wage. And it's a study. It's not. It has nothing to do with merit. It was, we need to get up to par, so to speak, with some of our competitors, and that includes some hospitals. That includes school districts. That includes maintenance and cooks and frontline and therapists and social workers and you name it. Development people, marketing people, quality improvement people. Our business is big. And the reason why this is so important, and I'm very proud of our team putting this together, is this now sets us up for this next year of really going after more employees, showing people that, here's the deal. If you go work, and I have nothing against retail, but I want to give an example. If you go during the day and say, hey, I'm going to go sell tennis shoes. At the end of the day, you either sold tennis shoes or didn't, and you can go home, watch TV, read a book, do whatever you want, watch your show, and you're not stressed because you just wake up the next day and have to sell more tennis shoes. Here, lives are on the line. You can change lives. You can look at a kid and show them a path, give them a dream. That's the difference between working at a place like Children's Home and sitting over here and doing something else. And I'm not saying we need people over here. I've got a lot of friends in the restaurant business. They need people. But so do we. And so if you want to go home at night and feel fulfilled, I'm telling you right now, get into this type of business because it's changed my life. I kept thinking over the time that I was going to do, when is it time to step away? Mm-hmm. And it keeps pulling you back in. And the reason why is because you wake up each day wanting to run through a wall for the kids that aren't protected. And so I know when I go to work that I know in my position, I'm making change just as much as maintenance, just as much as cook. Titles, throw them away. We all at a nonprofit make change. That's what we do.
Tri-County Carpet and Flooring in Fairbury is the premier flooring store throughout Livingston, McLean, and Ford counties. From choosing the perfect flooring to measuring and installation, Tri-County ensures top quality products and services. Their trained professionals boast precise measurements, straight cuts, and perfect fits, while their showroom houses a multitude of gorgeous, top-quality, name-brand carpet and flooring options in the latest styles and colors that are durable and long-lasting. With free estimates, design consultation, and contractor and multi-room discounts, Tri-County in Fairbury is your one-stop shop for all of your home and business flooring needs. Pay them a visit at 19 Jan Lane in Fairbury, Illinois, right off of Route 24, and give them a call at 815-692-3666.
Tri-County Carpet, your flooring paradise.
You all contribute in a very meaningful way, from the cooks to the janitors to you, to the improvement of some of the most vulnerable among us. So it's extremely meaningful work.
Right.
And not to say, like you said, that a restaurant might not, that it's not meaningful work.
It's meaningful.
Yeah, it's very meaningful and it's necessary, of course. But to go home every night and know that you did make a positive impact in someone's life that day, that's got to be, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's just like being a teacher. Right?
Mm-hmm.
You know,
exactly.
At the end of the day, if you're a good teacher, you've made an impact.
Right.
And there's something to that.
You spoke about that your company is worth, or the organization is worth how much? $30 million?
No, it's we don't look at it like that. It's our annual budget.
Oh, annual budget.
So our annual budget is all of our programs. So we have 50 plus programs, which is huge.
That's gigantic.
It's a very diverse agency, program-wise, scope-wise. So each one of those programs, all of the revenue that comes in for those programs totals $32 million.
Okay.
That's how you look at it.
Got it. Well, either way, that is a lot of money. And you talked about in your book how the community's money can either go to a nearby jail or it can go to your organization or organizations like yours.
Right.
Can you explain how exactly that's the case? Why does it have to be one or the other?
Well, it doesn't have to be one or the other, but I truly think that people deserve a chance. So I just told a story yesterday to a group of people about a 12-year-old that was not only in the system, but caught up in the other system, which is the Department of Juvenile Justice, which as an adult, it's the Department of Corrections. Mm-hmm. So he did something at the end of age 11 that changed his life forever. Now, it wasn't a homicide, but it was bad.
Can I ask what it was?
No.
No, I can't.
But my point is, does that put the child behind the 8 ball for the rest of his or her life? I don't believe that. Because you have to give these kids an opportunity. And I'm not saying every kid is going to become successful, whatever that looks like, right? But you at least have to give a 10 and 11-year-old a chance. And that's what I truly, truly believe. And it's should a 10-year-old go to jail? That's a debate for another time. I don't think so. Unless you just do something so heinous that, but a typical kid, jail is not the answer because you've already written that ticket. You've written that ticket. And so if a 10-year-old goes to jail, what are the odds of being in jail at 15, 20, 40, 60, and so on? So now you've paid millions of dollars for a soul behind bars forever. And I'm not an advocate either way. I'm just saying, as in my business, because I don't want to get into a debate about jails, but in my business, what it is these kids, we are tasked to give them a future. We're tasked with that. And I think that's, if you look at what our mission is, it's the kids that need it most. That's that kid.
I feel like a lot of the kids that wind up getting into serious criminal trouble, I'm willing to bet, and I don't know the stats on this, but I bet a lot of the time they don't really have a sturdy parental guidance of any kind. And so if they don't have that, I feel like it's our obligation as a society, or at least some of us, to, take it upon ourselves to raise them in some way, shape, or form. I mean, teachers can try, your organization can try, but I kind of vibe with what you're saying in that, you can't just throw them in jail, and it seems like you're abandoning them at that point.
So let me give you an example. You said I kind of vibe. All right, I'm going to make you change your mind and say I totally vibe with what you're saying. All right, kid was 12 years old. Okay, different kid. 14 times arrested. Now, if I told you by the age of 12 that kid was arrested 14 times, you'd say to me, that kid's got no chance. 13 out of the 14 arrests were for stealing food for his younger brothers and sisters because they were on the street. It changes the narrative, doesn't it? Right? So that kid's been arrested 14 times. You think he cares? He's been he needed to feed his sister. So you can say what you want. You don't know the whole story.
Yeah, you're darn right there.
And I'll stick up for that kid 24/7 because I knew that kid. I know that story. And his parents, one was killed and the other abandoned them. And that happens. So when I say the typical person doesn't know what's right underneath their nose, sometimes they don't. They just make assumptions.
Right.
And that's what gets us into trouble sometimes.
Okay. All right. There. I totally vibe with what you're saying. And I want to ask this, though, because it's obviously you're passionate about this topic. What do you say to people who, and these people exist, they seriously exist, and, well, it's this. What do you say to people who say that the poor are poor because of poor decisions that they've made and they deserve to be where they're at?
Not everybody has the same opportunity. We know that. And so what you think of as poor is different than what somebody potentially that is poor thinks of as poor. So that's a very broad statement, what poor is. Because I know of a family that actually is under the poverty level and they're very happy. Now, there's 13,000 kids in the system, in the school system, Peoria public school system, that are there with high poverty levels. Not every one of those kids that are at those poverty levels or below, or families, are unhappy. Now, there are a lot that are. And so do you think it's fair that you can go eat sushi tonight, right? Mm-hmm. And another kid has to go to a school where it's a requirement to wear a uniform but he doesn't have a place to stay. So how is he going to clean that uniform, even if he got a uniform free? How is he going to eat? What does he care about math or reading when there's so many other things that are attacking this family or this kid? Right? So people talk about truancy, and people talk about poverty, and people talk about all of these things. Well, the bottom line is everybody has different opportunities or no opportunities. So if you're born into the streets and have no home, what opportunity do you have? At age 3, at age 4, 5, whatever it may be, right? So do you think going and reading and math and getting up there to getting your GED is on the top of your mind at all times? No. No. So those are things that we do and we think about in our business all of the time. So when you look at kids in the system, the average age at children's home, people think of babies all the time, right? Average age is 15, 14, 15, right? So you're pretty close to becoming an adult, oddly. So you're only what? Legal 3 years to being 18, 5 years to being 21, 6 years to being 21. And so when you dial back to what we do, I don't care whether you're just born, which we have programs there that are 0 to 3, to our homeless youth program that goes all the way up to 24. It's our job at Children's Home and our team's job to take care and give these kids a chance. That's what we do.
From business logos to building signs, Aftershock Decals and Designs in Fairbury creates graphics and prints that will make heads turn. If you need signage for any occasion, Aftershock's team of creative experts are virtually unlimited in their capabilities. They can create the highest quality full and partial vehicle wraps for cars, trucks, trailers, semis, and race cars, as well as small to massive banners for all occasions. They also do yard signs, decals, window perforations, stickers, custom logo designs, and much more. When you need to promote your business, develop your brand, or enhance your image, do it all with the area's most trusted graphic design company, Aftershock Decals and Design in Fairbury, Illinois. Give them a call at 833-332-2548 or pay them a visit at 116 East Locust Street in Fairbury. Is it true that a big problem in central Illinois concerning the youth of the area is their likelihood of not showing up at school? Is that truancy? Is that what that is?
Yeah.
Like they skip school a lot?
Right. So I'll give you a stat that you won't believe. The number one reason for kids missing school in Peoria public schools is oral health. Now think about this. If a kid doesn't have a toothbrush, doesn't have a home, is not eating correctly, is doing all of those things, never been to a dentist, and your mouth is going the wrong way, right? What happens? You get sick. These kids are getting sick because they don't have all the proper everything. Nutrients in their body, brushing their teeth. And here's the kicker. They're born into families where that wasn't a priority. Or I have a cavity. Kid has a cavity. We don't have the money to go to the dentist, take the pain, or go to the ER. Right? That's what happens. So there's so many different issues. I mean, there's layer after layer after layer that I could come back and fire back at you to say, well, you can't say one issue causes this issue.
Right.
It's a compounding array, a bowl of just stuff, right, that is thrown at these kids and families, and it's tough. It's tough.
Man, I had a bit of a structure to this conversation where I was planning to go with it. It wasn't scripted, but I had a general outline. But since we're talking about this, I want to ask, it's so complex complex issues require complex solutions. It's a multifaceted issue, just like you said. It's a bowl of all these different reasons why why we have a truancy problem. I would have never guessed oral health, but now that you say it, that makes perfect sense. I wouldn't go to school if I were experiencing issues like that. But you help kids that grow up in these toxic environments. That could mean a whole bunch of different things. How or what do you think we could do as a nation, as a society, a government structure, maybe a government body could do to alleviate or to make better these environments in the first place, or make them less common, these toxic environments? What do you think we could do instead of helping the kids that grow up in these, concerning ourselves with helping the kids that grow up in these environments, with fixing the environments themselves? It's like I said, I know it's a loaded question. So
Well, you've asked me a lot of loaded questions.
that's right. Yeah, I'm keeping you on your toes, man.
You are. It's what we do every day. It's what we try to do every day. Take Children's Home off the table for a second. Look at a Boys and Girls Club, right? Look at Mark First here in Bloomington, what they do, adults with disabilities. So here, there's a subset of the population that needs help. And it's that mission and that goal of Mark First to be able to step in, find jobs for people. Everybody's looking for employees, right? Find jobs for people and give meaning to people. That's their goal. So what's the best thing? What's the best medicine for a lot of people? It's being employed.
Oh,
right?
that's absolutely true.
It's very true.
Mm-hmm. People don't think that. They think it's something else. But no, man,
it's
having that
being
sense of
employed. It's that sense of accomplishment and self-worth that's worth $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
That's what a place like Mark First does. So now take every nonprofit, Children's Home, Boys and Girls Club. You mentioned Baby Fold. Take Mark First. Take all of these. We all have to sit here and do what we can and work together from community to community. Because every community, even though we have a lot of the same underlying issues, there are some communities that have bigger issues than others. So San Fran has a bigger homeless issue than Peoria, right? Warmer climates have bigger homeless issues than colder climates.
For obvious reasons.
Obvious reasons. We have to work together. Nonprofits have to work together. But I will tell you this, to answer your question, it is the knowledge and the communication and the education of the average person out there to want to know what I said earlier, what's right underneath your nose. If you saw what happens in a school district, as an example, and these teachers and these administrators and these people work very hard to educate your kids, but they're up against a lot. If you knew everything that was going on and not just the negative, because a lot of times a fight happens at a school and then they'll just look what happens at this school. This school is dangerous. Mm-hmm. Well, what about the 15 wins that they had in this past 2 weeks that no one got a pat on the back on?
Bad news sells, and it's very annoying.
Well, and that's why I decided to come on your show, because your show is positive.
That's right. Hey, thank you.
Yeah, and I think that's the message to people, is to just be open. I don't care about your views or what political side you're on and this and that. When it all comes down to it, it's about taking care of each other. Because take the person out of it if you can. Mm-hmm. Isn't it about the community you live in? Don't you want to live in a great community? We all do. I don't care where you're at. That's the goal. So the education and wanting, I want people to know. If you give me $1,000 donation, I want you to know what we do. I'll take it, no matter what. Mm-hmm. But I want you to know what we do. And so I think it's very important to know what we do. And that's what you mentioned the book, and I'm not plugging the book. It's a darn good book, though. Well, I give the proceeds of the book to Children's Home. And The reason why is because it wasn't for anything other than to kind of show that we are a business, but it's a business of taking care of people.
Mm-hmm. I liked what you said about, thank you for saying my show's positive, but I think it's, bad news does sell, but your mind, your mental health is a lot like your physical health in that if you consume a lot of bad content, bad food, you will have a unhealthy body, where if you take in nothing but bad news, you're going to have an unhealthy mind. So I think it's important to talk about some of the wins and stuff, like we have done a little bit in this conversation.
Yeah.
But so you think that caring about one another, you talk about compassion in your book a lot. Mm-hmm. And we're going to switch gears here in a second to talking about more business, but just to kind of, can you summarize what you just said as far as like what we would need to do to in your best guess?
So people who get into our business, it could be teachers too, or emergency room, you have to have the compassion for people to work in our business. So when someone walks through that door and they've been beaten up, you better care or you're in the wrong business. But here is something that gets lost. You have to have the passion and compassion for each other too. You don't know, if we have 400 plus employees at Children's Home, you don't know what's going on in my family. You don't know that I just saw a kid or heard of a kid that tried to commit suicide, or I read a file where that kid was sexually abused for 10 years, or was in a gang and never had a chance because he was born into it. You don't know. You don't know what that person next to you is going through. And that's what I truly believe in our society, that we've stopped caring so much about, you care so much about yourself that you forget the person next to you also needs help, because these are the people too that are taking care of the kids or the families, or at Mark First as an example, the adults, whatever it may be. It's an important piece to remember, because if you're not taking care of your team, then what are you? What are you doing? Right? It goes back. You're not selling tennis shoes. This is about people. And we have to take care of people. Period.
Brilliantly put. And we're going to circle back to that a little bit towards the end of this thing, but I want to switch gears a little bit to talking about business, because, it's obvious. You're a pretty good businessman. You know your way around the business sector, how to run a business, profit or nonprofit. And not that you've actually been involved in for-profit organizations, but I think a lot of the principles can extend into that it takes to run a good nonprofit can extend into for-profits. But you, the person that wrote the foreword to your book, is Kevin Harrington, who's an original season 1 shark from Shark Tank.
Right.
And from what I read in the book, you kind of cut him off after one of his speeches.
Right.
And you somehow managed to set up a time to meet him in Florida. You guys hung out and he became your mentor.
Right.
What do you think? And that guy's worth $500 million.
800. But who's counting?
Well, anyway, what do you think it was about you and what you said to him that made this ultra-rich, famous guy not tell you to buzz off that day?
Well, it was interesting. The story, he spoke. He talked about people always hitting him up. He talked about people doing the Shark Tank, hey, I'm pitching a product, or hey, I need money. And, he had a bodyguard with him. And I saw him kind of move back kind of through the back door of the room. And I knew there was only one way out of this place. And so no one else moved, and I said, I'm going to make a move. And I went up to him and I said, Kevin, I'm not asking for money and I don't have a product. I run a children's home in Peoria, Illinois. And he goes, interesting. And I thought he was blowing me off. And he said, I've got to catch my plane. I'll call you in 2 hours. 2 hours later, he did call me. He said he knew everything about me. In that time, he'd done a background check on me. He knew the athletes that I worked with, and he knew about my fundraising, and he knew about my tennis and all those different things. And he said, what do you want? And I said, I need a mentor. I have a lot of mentors. I'm a true believer in mentors. I mentor people myself. But I needed somebody that was just a touch different. This guy is a touch different. And so he said, all right, interesting. Well, if you come down to this address on this date at this time, I'll know you're serious. And I took him up on it. I went to his house. I didn't know it was his house. He answered the door, ended up talking to him, and he said, I'm a busy man, and the first thing I'm going to have you do is write a book, but I need you to, do what I say because I've got a plan. I've put together a plan for you. I said, all right. So I wrote a book, and that's what started a now 3-year relationship where I talk to him weekly. He is you
talk to this guy weekly still?
Yeah, he's still a mentor, and he's still an advisor and a friend. I mean, he is an interesting guy, and I've been in speeches with him in person, and it was just a unique opportunity. And lastly, what he said was, this book, you'll never carry a business card again. Your book is your business card for life. And I thought that was something that will stick with me forever. I thought it was interesting, and it is. I constantly have a book on me. If I'm on an airplane, I strike up. I'm not one to sit and put headphones on and listen to music on an airplane. I'm talking to people, and I talk wherever I go, and usually it turns into a conversation about what do you do, what do I do, and
right.
Turns into Children's Home. And that's what the book's about, business and Children's Home.
Has the desire to ever make a mean profit, because you could if you wanted to, ever bubbled up inside of you? I mean, for Pete's sake, you're talking to a guy who is worth, your mentor is worth $800 million. How has the desire to, like I said, make a big profit ever bubbled up inside you and said, maybe, I could use my efforts in this nonprofit. Maybe I could make myself some serious money.
Yeah. In this business, the answer is yes. I've thought about it.
Right, you're only
silly
human.
not to think about it.
Yeah.
The thing about this business is when you've been in it as long as I am, or as long as I have, you sit here and wonder how long your time is, really. Because there are people that are coming in this business that are younger, and there are people who are actually have great ideas that are coming into this business. And so sometimes I'll take a step back and not be as hands-on as I was 5 years ago or 10 years ago, 15, 20, whatever it may be. And you do think about things because you never know. It's in our business, you don't have contracts. You're an at-will employee, and that includes me. And so you never know what's going to happen. You never know if there's a crisis around the corner or something that, and so, you think about it. But here's the deal. Being in the business 30 years, knowing the impact, I could leave today and I'm fulfilled. I've had a career that has been as fulfilling as one could have when it comes to helping people. And that's the bottom line. I said a long time ago, I could have gone and worked over here or over there, right? Anybody could. Anybody that works at Children's Home could. Everyone's got a talent. But when you see, like back when I played tennis, that girl who was dying of leukemia, and I was struggling on the court, and she came up to me and gave me a hug at hour 62, and I was only at the 50% point. What do you think I'm going to do? Here's a kid, 9-year-old girl, who just shot up with chemo and has a 7% chance to live, or do you sit there and say, I can stay up another day? I'm a competitive man. And age 30, 40, and now 50, it's not changed. And that fire's still in me, and that fire, until someone tries to say, Matt, it's time to move on, it's going to be hard, because the impact that our teams have, I see it. That's the one big plus of my business that I'm in, is I get to see it from all levels. So I can see the change that people make. And that's fulfilling.
Let me tell you about Fairbury Furniture. Fairbury Furniture is Central Illinois' premier furniture store. This family-owned business offers a vast selection of premium furniture items from all of your favorite brands, including Sealy, Best Home Furnishings, Leather Italia, Tempur-Pedic, and Ashley, just to name a few. Right next door to their gorgeous 7,000 square foot furniture showroom, you will also find the Fairbury Furniture Mattress Store, home to all of the latest and greatest mattresses in any and all sizes. Here at Fairbury Furniture, the staff is helpful and friendly, and they're also well stocked with all of the mattresses, tables, chairs, recliners, couches, rugs, and decorative pillows that your heart desires. Make your home interior beautiful, comfortable, stylish, and delightful when you shop at Fairbury's own Fairbury Furniture. We didn't even talk about, and I'm kind of regret not even talking about it. You said the story about that girl coming up to you when you were on the, what was it, 16th hour, you said, of your
60th hour, 62nd hour.
60, okay. Well, yeah, that whole time in your life, you were working with a lot of professional athletes.
Yeah.
You went to U of I, and your cousin is, Jeff George, quarterback for like the Indianapolis Colts and the Oakland
14-year
Raiders.
NFL quarterback, number 1 overall draft pick. He was
Right.
a star, and I ran his foundation for 10 years, and it was a fun run. So I got to be around a lot of good people and a lot of famous people and a lot of good stories there.
Tons, Walter Payton, Mike
Yeah.
Ditka. Apparently Hulk Hogan, you said, gave you a call too.
Yeah.
It's incredible stuff, but that's for another podcast. Today we're talking about some serious issues rather than, the highlights of your career and stuff. But I want to ask also, I know we're on limited time here. You talk in your book about the importance of being compassionate when you're in a leadership position in any organization.
Yeah.
And the number one reason people leave their jobs and quit their jobs is because, in America at least, they feel their bosses don't value them, or that they don't get the respect and the credit that they deserve. So there's a lot of crappy bosses in our country, everywhere really. What is something that they could do to retain their employees better, but also just give their employees a better quality work experience?
That's not a loaded question. That's an easy one for me. And I'm going to kind of switch it to tell you, I truly believe that I have faults as a leader. But one thing you can't take away from me is that I care about you. Period. So you may not be the right person for the job. Sometimes I have to make that call. You may struggle, and we will help. That's what you're there for. And so I've always had that mentality. I've always had a compassionate heart, sometimes to a fault. But again, the older I get, the more I sit there and go, I don't think that's a fault. I just think it's a leadership style. And not everybody agrees with it, because there's times where you sit there and go, I should have been a little more stern over here. I should have set a strategy over here that was a little stronger with, But that's all stuff that you can look back on and question yourself, but why? It's over. So really what it is now is how can, whether my career at children's homes, 1 more year or 10 more years, how do you sit there and take that and make it as impactful as you can, that helps community, that helps your team, and being a boss, being a CEO, a president and CEO, there's a responsibility there. And I always say, with 400 plus employees, it's not just the 400 plus employees that I'm tasked to taking care of and being part of. It's also their families. Mm-hmm. And that's a true statement.
So you're not just caring about your employees, you're caring about their entire family.
I know a lot of families and their kids and situations, and you hear a lot. You have a lot of people, when you have that open door, compassionate point of view, a lot of people come to you and tell you stories. Some a little too deep, but they
oh yeah.
But that's part of being in this position is you care. It goes back to what I said earlier about passion and compassion. You need to care who's next to you. And There's other instances where sometimes the business dictates, or the needs of the agency or the business dictates a change, but that doesn't mean you dislike the person or don't feel bad for the person. I mean, I have feelings too. I go home every night and I can't clear my head. I don't sit here and say, well, I saw that this kid was beaten up today. It's now time to eat.
It's not funny. I'm sorry.
It weighs on you.
Right. Yeah.
It weighs on you. And people, there isn't a week go by where somebody doesn't say, Matt, how do you handle the stress? Or how do you, keep, well, there is no separation, to be honest with you. You learn that in this business, part of the reward of making change for the good, you have to struggle at times to get to that finish line. And that's what's hard. But over time, you figure out your own personal mechanisms, like mine's working out, mine's being with my kids at sports, mine's doing all that fun stuff, reading and so on. And those are my level sets mentally that I have to be able to wake up the next day and want to brawl. And that's what I do.
Right. Yeah. And I like that you mentioned sometimes people tell you a little too much. Well, it's amazing what people will tell you if you just listen, because bearing the weight of an untold story is really terrible sometimes. And I've learned that even in this show.
Well, you're the master of it with the show, because you hear stories that, you go into an interview like this, you have no clue how it's going to end. Mm-hmm. You really don't, because no matter who's on my side right now, you don't know how they're going to open up and what they're going to say. And I think that's what's interesting about your team and your employees too, is you never know what's going on in their families and the help that they need to live.
Right. And we're getting towards the end here. Just a couple questions. I gotta pick them wisely, because, well, first of all, I want to ask. What do I want to ask? There's pressure now. Okay, here's one, and it's iffy. I don't want to put you in a box or anything like that.
Well, you already have, so go ahead.
Well, okay, fine.
I'm joking.
So. No, everyone's going to acknowledge that a lot of what you're saying, the principles by which you live and the philosophies that you hold, are really on track with a lot of Christian principles. And I know that the Children's Home isn't exactly a Christian organization as far as I know. But in your personal life, or perhaps are some of the principles that guide how you do things in this organization, are they rooted in Christian beliefs, or at least God-centered beliefs?
Well, I mean, our agency is basically non-denominational. I mean, we don't sit here. We do not. If a young person comes in and is Jewish, mm-hmm. or Middle Eastern, or African American, or whatever it may be, and they, whatever their beliefs are, we embrace. And that's one of the principles that why we've been around 155 years. Mm-hmm. Personally, and this has nothing to do with Children's Home, I've always had a belief that, and you could say they're Christian principles, but I've always had a belief of taking care of others. I've always had a belief in that. And I think it's very important. And I've taught my kids this. I have 5 kids. And I wrote about it in my book. What I wrote about was I never wanted my 3 oldest daughters to get into this business because of what I saw on the tough side. I wanted to protect my daughters, but I had them participate in everything, right? I had them do auctions with me, and they were hold up the items, and I had them volunteer all throughout high school. I wouldn't let them work in high school. I said, you find the place and you will volunteer, and then I'll give you an allowance because you owe it to the community. So those are the principles that I set with my daughters. Little did I know that every one of my daughters went to school to help people. I never thought that. And where I didn't want them to get involved when I was younger, now, and as I wrote about them in my book, I could not be any more proud. So my one daughter is a school-based therapist. My next daughter works with the adult population. And my next daughter, who's out of school, works with children. And so I still have 2 others that are not into college yet. But the 3 that are out of college all help people. And I don't think there could be anything more fulfilling, and whatever your beliefs are, could be more fulfilling than knowing that if there's one thing that I did for my kids, has nothing to do with money or what we've eaten or vacations or anything, is that I showed them a path to take care of people and to know that they must, no matter what, because their dad said so, take care of their community.
I love it. It's very fascinating parenting style that I haven't actually heard of, but I think I really like it. Last question here, Matt. If a philanthropic organization watches this episode and says, you know what, let's give this guy $100 million, and it goes straight into your personal bank account, what are you going to do with that $100 million?
Well, I think the first thing I would do is gather all the leaders of Central Illinois, not just Peoria, and maybe the leaders of Illinois, and start fixing things at a faster rate. And I would give more kids and more families opportunities to live, to eat, to sleep, and to have the education I think they deserve. That's what I'd do with it.
I love it.
And I'd go on vacation.
Yeah, after transferring this money into the business account.
Right.
Matt, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you today.
Well, you're awesome. Good questions.
Well, thank you very much. All right. And I'll let you get out of here.
All right, man.
That's a wrap. Thank you so much.